What if Christopher Columbus came to America way faster? This is probably not what you're expecting. In this universe, Christopher Columbus doesn't really look like this. He actually looks a bit more like this. He's actually a giant rock on fire coming at the Earth. Well, I mean, specifically America. We have to keep it historical here. Wait, actually, I don't even think he is a rock. He is himself. He's just traveling at the speed of a giant asteroid. So on August 3rd, 1492, Columbus departs Spain. The fleet docks on the Canary Islands a week later and undergoes a number of unknown modifications. Once they set sail again, the ships begin to experience a rapid westward acceleration. The Santa Maria ship impacts the northern coast of New Aragon 0.999 times the speed of light. Most life within a radius of 200 kilometers is instantly destroyed. The impact ejects several trillion tons of material into the atmosphere. Tidal waves reach the coast of Colombia within 3 hours. Tidal waves also begin to hit New Spain within 4. Florida is completely unrecognizable. Sediment resulting from the Columbian impact debris composes a significant part of the lake beds of the Colombian Great Lakes. Also, debris from the Columbian impact can be found in places as far as Greenland. The tidal wave from the Columbian impact devastated the west coast of Europe. Man, I wonder what kind of modifications he did to his ship in the Canary Islands. He pulled it into the docks looking like this, and a week later it came out looking like this. Just some slight modifications there. The Columbian impact crater has significantly altered the coastline of New Aragon. It looks like there was a time warp that occurred here. Maybe he did all this just to finally sink the Netherlands into the ground. I knew he wasn't a fan. Finally, an old history map that is truly what everyone's been asking for. Oh, speaking of the Netherlands flooding, the 2034 North Sea flood map. 72 hours that changed the Netherlands forever. Now, we all know these Dutch lands are low. Very, very low. But what if the ocean had a little bit of its own reconquista? So this whole thing was triggered by a massive hurricane moving through the English Channel. And as you can see, pretty much all of the Dutch dikes, they have failed. So that's, yeah, they have all failed. Netherlands literally loses like 50% of its land in 3 days. Obviously, the scenario is incredibly unlikely since most hurricanes never hit the Netherlands. They do occasionally hit the UK though. Hurricanes really need a lot of warm water to get enough energy, so this must be assuming climate change is going to get really bad in the next 12 years, and then the Netherlands has to get really, really unlucky. I love that no matter who you ask, the Joker to the Netherlands Batman is always the sea. A world in the multiverse, except every continent has been severely balkanized. Basically take the chaos that exists in this small region of Earth and expand it to everywhere. I'll give us about 2 years to survive. I'm actually incredibly impressed. They could have easily just squared this whole thing off, but no, we actually have like squiggly borders. Accurate for the Balkans. I do like the United Baja Peninsula though in Mexico. I think actually I'd be living somewhere around there. Florida's been split in two. It appears in some of these spots the Native Americans are rising up, or we're just using old school names from back in the day. One thing's for sure, Ohio will always exist. There's definitely places on this map where there's maybe only about 1,000 people that exist inside the country. Holy crap, and I thought America was bad. Africa is even more I don't even know what is going on there. I like how Europe has basically just gone back to their old medieval days. Might as well bring back that Holy Roman Empire. Remember what I said about 1,000 people living in one of these countries? This has got to be definitely one of them. Oh wait, to my surprise, I'm severely mistaken. There's about 300,000 people that live on this land. I mean, at least as of the moment in our current universe. I don't know what happens in this multiverse. India's back to being completely divided. China also, they're probably going through a huge civil war, but they're used to that. This just feels like playing a game of territorial IO, like which country is going to just conquer everything. I love how in the balkanized world, the island of Cyprus is actually united. How beautiful. What if the small microstate of Liechtenstein accepted the Alaska Purchase? Here we have the tiny country of Liechtenstein, which is smashed in between Switzerland and Austria, and here's the entire former US state of Alaska. Believe it or not, this was actually way closer to being a reality than you might think. How one of the smallest countries in the world nearly bought Alaska. Remember at this time in the 19th century, the Russians were dealing with a lot of chaos, and even though they had their Russian colony in America, there was technically only a couple thousand Russians that actually lived there. So they decided to sell it off to get an extra bit of cash. Technically, the two houses that ruled over these two countries, Liechtenstein and Russia, had good relations. Crazy how far networking can get you. Can you imagine what this would have done to the entire country? The scope of this is almost impossible to wrap my head around. This is Liechtenstein inside of Alaska. They would, however, have about the same amount of people, though. There's about 40,000 people that live in that tiny area in Europe at the moment. And back when Russia sold Alaska to the US, there was believed to be about 10,000 people living in there. Their territory would be like 100 times bigger, yet they would only be adding like 20% extra to their population. I'm actually kind of depressed that I don't live in the universe where this happened in. I mean, it's like the same way Denmark controls Greenland, except, you know, like 10 times crazier. I mean, Liechtenstein here is literally landlocked. I don't even know how they get to Alaska. A Louisiana rail map, but in a slightly different universe. This is a world where Louisiana actually keeps all of their American territory that they had back in the day. And in addition to that, they actually have almost all of the French holdings in America. No Quebec, though. Remember when the US purchased Louisiana, they pretty much doubled in size. But what if they never did that? What if France just kept all this? I'm assuming this universe is where this territory goes independent, though. So we've got high-speed rail taking you from New Orleans down here in the south, all the way up to Tulsa, Oklahoma, or St. Louis, as far up as Minneapolis, as well as Fargo. Oh man, seeing all these American places in French names is really tripping me out. Wait, is that a Mount Rushmore, but with French monarchists instead? Oh man, the Omaha fashion capital. If there's anyone that knows fashion, it's Nebraska. That might be like the most offensive thing I've ever said in like the last year. I do believe this would probably be the best dressed place in all of the Americas, probably. Another part we're not considering is the amount of new French speakers that would be introduced to the continent. I was big in the movie industry. Love this, the Three Countries Peace Monument. Obviously, if we have French Louisiana here, there's Canada still, and the US, if they're still called the US. I'm assuming in this universe, is Texas independent, or are most of these Pacific states still under Mexico? I'm assuming that's gotta be the case. Man, I just want to spend one day in this universe. I want to see that French Nebraskan fashion. What if the Wagner Group insurgency accidentally created a Russian civil war? This is what a lot of people thought was going to happen. I'm going to be honest, this would be a pretty terrifying reality just because Russia is a nuclear state. A nuclear state with the most nukes currently, by the way, I might add. Kind of an important detail. But at least we get the Tuvan Republic to come back. Pretty much a favorite nation for all the Hoi 4 players out there. There are other uprisings as well. For example, the Dagestan Liberation Front. I wonder if there would be any problems in their enclave as well. I don't think as many people realize just how much of a terrifying situation this would have been. If it wasn't like an instant thing and it dragged out for weeks or months, there could be a lot of bad things that go down. Oh man, and the fighting would go on for 3 months. What if Napoleon III formed an alliance with Franz Joseph of Austria? An Austrian-French alliance at this time would have easily changed the world forever. The Italians are pretty much done. They're never going to be united. And then I doubt we'd see a united Germany, or definitely not by the Prussians. Maybe Austria becomes just Germany. Remember Napoleon III, not the first one that took over all of Europe, he ruled from 1851 to 1870. There would probably still be a world war, but I have no idea what that would even look like. I feel like those alliance chains would still somehow pull the entire world into a massive conflict. I wonder how the British would feel about all this. An atlas of the world's microstates, if there were a little bit more of them. Now, obviously there's a couple of familiar faces like Andorra, Monaco, Liechtenstein, San Marino, Vatican, but at the very same time, there's also a couple of new places. That looks like a Jewish state somewhere near Ethiopia. There must have been at least one microstate in Africa that fell apart. This is a united and free Zulu nation. Oh, I love that ball flag. This must be the micronation of Australia, ruled by emus. Oh man, there goes the micronation of South Vietnam. Yeah, they didn't last. There's one here in the north of India, and there's also a ton here in North America. That's definitely what we need. We need more micronations. Why not? A lot of them are Native American micronations as well. Are these Mormon balls, or what's going on here? There's also 2 in Central America and 1 down here in South America. Are those the Inca? It looks like the Inca. Wait a second. Is this a failed Nono Germany that decided to hide in Antarctica? Judging by their current state, it looks like that didn't go well. Oh, these are all micronations that we've covered actually before in the past, if some of these places had their own small country to rule over. For example, here we have the Dominion of Rhode Island. Like their flag, it reminds me of Tonga time. I've actually reviewed a lot of this stuff in the past. Each one has an interesting story and history. Like there were lost Incans found in South America, and a lot of this stuff also isn't super far-fetched either. Sometimes they were actual ideas thrown around. The independent Crimea, that's like basically a slave, yeah, you could see that. And I believe we have an independent Constantinople back. I want to honestly see all these nations in like a battle royale now, even if they are really, really tiny. This is absolutely beautiful. I mean, if there was any time in history for a ton of microstates to be able to exist like this, it would be right now. Maybe we'll see some of these even in the future. Well, not exactly like this, but I don't know. Big thanks to my patrons. I have cloned Drew, and I'm now training him to fight the imposter doing these videos. Subscribe to Drew now. John Denver. Australia is real. I am not a fat, normal, Argentinian grandpa. Amateur archaeology. Inquisitor. KirinoIsBestGirl. Luxembourg-Lover. Robert. The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. The Twickenhamster. And why am I doing this?